Vicky, 27, left Vietnam with the false promise of work abroad. She was instead exploited for labour and sex in Russia and the UK. Vicky had separated from her husband when he became violent and was working to support their son. She and her sister were approached by two men offering to take them abroad to work. They travelled with the men to Russia, and her son was left with his paternal uncle in Vietnam. As soon as they arrived, the men took their passports and delivered them to a clothing factory, where they worked for 2 years without pay, with around 70 others. Vicky worked 10 to 12 hours a day and was repeatedly raped by her male workers. 2 years later, Vicky and her sister were collected in a small van with 8 others and driven for 2 days. Eventually arriving in the UK, Vicky was separated from her sister and has not seen her since that day. She was taken in by a Vietnamese man, unaware that drugs were being grown upstairs, until the house was raided by the police. Vicky was arrested and, too afraid of telling them her story and feeling that she had nowhere else to go, remained quiet and ended up in prison. After 2 months, Vicky's solicitor referred her to the National Referral Mechanism, NRM, and the Salvation Army moved her to a safe house where she received specialist support for 3 months until she received a threatening call. Frightened for her life, Vicky did as she was instructed and returned to her traffickers. She was met by a Vietnamese couple and made to work as a prostitute in their home and fell pregnant. She was discovered by the police several months later and eventually referred for a second time to the NRM. The Salvation Army placed her in a safe house where she was given support with legal services, her ongoing asylum claim, probation appointments, and provided with medical support for her pregnancy and the birth of her daughter. Vicky has received money from the Salvation Army's Victim Care Fund for her daughter's childcare, while she accessed counselling for the emotional distress of her years of abuse. She now attends weekly English classes, and her English has improved significantly. 5 years after first being trafficked, Vicky is now building a new life for herself and her young daughter, having received safe house support from Salvation Army subcontractors, City Hearts and Black Country Women's Aid. There are hundreds of thousands of people trapped in slavery across the UK. Not all victims manage to escape their exploiters.